Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you've not been here before, my name is Rob. I'm a navigation instructor and a hill and moorland leader based on Dartmoor National Park in the southwest of England. In past videos I've looked at skills such as grid references, timings and bearings. And today we're going to move that forward a little bit now and discuss planning of your hike, whether that's just an hour, a full day or even a weekend. Now most problems in the hills comes down to the lack of prior preparation, the lack of planning. So before you even grab your compass and grab your boots, in this video I'm going to walk through everything that you should plan for before you go off on a hike. So if things do go wrong on the hills or the mountains, at least you have an idea of how to fix it. We have a plan and we have a strategy. So let's get stuck into it. Okay, so whether you're heading out on Dartmoor, the Lake District, Snowdonia or even the Scottish Highlands, if you're on your own or in a big group, the principles are all the same. Good planning makes the day more smoother and far more enjoyable. You'll achieve more, you'll discover more, and you'll be better prepared if something does go wrong. Now for me, it starts with 5 W's. Who, what, where, when, and the weather. Now I also consider 3 E's, and they're going to be education, emergency, and equipment. All a bit confusing, I'm sure, by now, but I'm going to go through and explain every single one of those headings in greater detail during this video. And if you can answer all of those properly, you're already ahead of most people heading out onto the hills or the mountains. In this scenario, I'm going to be planning for a guided tour for a middle-aged couple from London. They're called Jack and Sarah. So the first one is who. Who is on my walk? Are you maybe just hiking on your own? Or are you with a small group of friends or family? Understanding who is on your walk is the first question because everything else depends on that answer. So are they experienced? How is their fitness levels? Are they injured in the past that still niggles them sometimes? Are they comfortable in really bad, poor weather? Now Jack and Sarah have told me that they often walk at weekends, and over the last few years they've been on many walking holidays. They're both really fit and able and quite comfortable walking for 6 hours at a time. So this gives me really good confidence that I'm going to be able to build a planned walk for a day without too many limitations. Now a strong and experienced hiker is going to move really quickly across open moorland or mountain tracks and ground. But someone who has never been on tracks like that before is always going to be that little bit less able. They're going to be less confident. And therefore the route is going to take longer for them. And you've got to be aware of that and start planning for that. My next W is what. What are the objectives of the hike? What am I trying to achieve during the day? Maybe it's just a day that I want to reach the summit of a new mountain I've never been to before. Or maybe I just want to chill out and take some photos by a nearby lake. Now in the case of Jack, he would like to visit some of the highest parts of Dartmoor so he can get some really good views of all the landscape. And Sarah's really interested in Bronze Age stone circles. And if we can, we're going to try and find some Dartmoor ponies for her, but I can never promise that. Now I know what the goals are for the hike. I can start building a picture of the day. I can start to build a story so I can know what the day is going to look like. You need to be clear because if you don't plan at this point, everything kind of just becomes a bit random. Your route's going to be random, your day's going to be random, and you're not going to get everything out of the day that maybe you really hoped for. Okay, so my next W is where. And this is the point we can start looking at the map. Where am I going? I'm not just picking a start location. I'm thinking about distance, total ascent and descent, terrain type, access, parking and facilities. Now I have to consider the who, and I have to consider the what, and I can now start adding that into where we're going to go to try and find a suitable location route to get all of our goals in. This is also a really good opportunity to start thinking about the smaller details. Where are you going to park? Is there a small lay-by that fills up really early that you need to get to? Are there toilets or a cafe, a pub at the end of the hike to have a drink afterwards? Where are we going to meet our group? Now these sound all really minor, but they aren't. Logistics are a lot easier to get sorted in this sort of environment, at home, in your kitchen table or in your room, before you head out on the hills, where potentially it's going to be cold and wet. Now personally, I love circular routes. But if you're walking in just one direction, for example, near us, we've got the Southwest Coastal Path, you then need to start planning when you get to that end location, how you're going to get back to your car, be that public transport, bus. Now, I'm not going to show you in massive detail during this video the actual route planning. This is more of an overview, everything that I tend to try and consider when I'm planning a day's hike, not just the actual route. That will be in the next video, I promise. But I am just going to do a very quick overview using the OS Maps software, which I'm going to show you in a second. And that's just going to help me consider those things like the distance, the starting points, the finish points, the terrain, and start building a picture just on a very quick map route. Those things that we need to try and achieve for Jack, it's going to be climbing to some of the highest points on the moor, and for Sarah to try and find a stone circle. So I'm just going to find some of those on the map now and start building a bit of picture once I've gone through all the rest of the items. So we'll move on. Okay, so our next W is when. We're now going to look at timing. When is this actually happening? What time of year is really, really important? Because a 15-kilometre walk on a really hot summer's day in June is going to be very different than a 15-kilometre walk on a cold, wet December. Daylight hours matter. What time is sunrise? What time is last light? For example, if your goal is to go and watch a sunset on the summit of a mountain, you're going to need to know what time that sunset's happening, how long your walk is, and then that's going to give you what time you need to leave. All about that prior preparation. You also need to think about ground conditions, because different times of the year will change this. Has there been lots of heavy rain recently? Are you going to do a river crossing, but the river's been up really high because of the amount of rain? Or maybe in the colder months, some of the steeper paths are going to be really icy. There's a few areas here on Dartmoor that I'm just not trying to get to this time of the year, and I'm filming this just after winter. It's going to be too wet. The marshland is renowned on Dartmoor for being wet and staying wet for a few months. So I'm just going to save that particular route for the summer, and I'm going to build myself another route which is going to be a bit drier. Now I'm planning this hike for Jack and Sarah for around spring, around Easter time. So by then I know the ground is going to be a little bit drier, the daylight hours are increasing, so as long as we set off by mid-morning, after 6 hours we'll be back by mid-afternoon, so we're well before any sunset. My final W is weather. And this isn't about just raining, it's about wind speed, wind direction, temperature, wind chill, visibility, and finally participation. For me, it doesn't matter if it's raining, apart from I've checked to see if it's raining, do I need to take my waterproofs, or it's raining on the walk, I need to put my waterproofs on. Other than that, rain doesn't really affect a hiker too much. But what does can be visibility, because visibility can then require additional navigation and some really, really good navigation if you've lost complete visibility in low mist. And that's obviously going to affect your time. So ask yourself, are you skilled enough to do this? Is there anything about the route that you could change? You could adjust it. Could you shorten it? If it's a really windy day, instead of going really high up onto the ridges of the mountains, could you do something a bit lower down? Could you simplify it, change it? Flexibility in planning is your strength. Knowing the weather, you then can work out what equipment to bring, whether that's additional water, whether it's additional clothing. But weather nowadays is really easy to check via different apps and different sort of software and websites. So do that as part of your planning. Okay, so that was your 5 W's. Let's move on to the E's really quickly. So our first E is education. And this isn't about qualification, it's about knowledge. Are you able to take yourself and your group on a hike that you're planning? Do you have the correct knowledge, education, skills to do this safely? It is so important nowadays. Have you educated the rest of the group on your plan? Like what the terrain's like, the distance, and the general sort of objectives of the day, if they don't already know them. Because a well-planned route can still unravel if people don't understand what they're doing. Now, if I'm leading, I ask myself before the actual hike, what does this group need to know before we set off? Now, most people just don't like to follow the leader. They like to know what's happening. They like to know the distance that they're covering, the sort of terrain that they're going to be on. Rough timings, like what time are they finishing and what time they're going to be able to stop for lunch? What time are they getting back to the car park? Key decision points. People don't like surprises out on the hills. It's better to be nice and clear and open and upfront in the car park before you set out. Now, in the case of Jack and Sarah, I'm going to be ensuring that I read up on some interesting facts on stone circles of the area, because that's one of the things we're going to be looking at. So my sort of education bit is actually just to make sure that I'm well up to date on all the history that I can then pass on to the group as I'm teaching them. My second E is equipment. And this links directly to all those W's. So the who, where, when, and the weather. Equipment must match your day's activities. So if it's a really, really hot day, which you've already established because you've already checked the weather, your equipment then needs to be, for example, some extra sun cream lotion, some extra water, maybe mosquito bite, and so on. It's not just about boots and a waterproof jacket. It's about having the correct equipment, the correct installation, the right amount of food, water, and even personal medication. Have you got a first aid kit within your group? And do you know how to use it? Equipment just isn't about comfort. It's about resilience. It's about staying alive. And I don't mean that lightheartedly. If you've got the wrong equipment and you're in the wrong place in the wrong time, you're going to get yourself into some serious trouble. So consider your kit, consider your equipment. But if you're leading the group, you need to consider everybody's. So make sure they've got everything they need. Now, again, when it comes to Jack and Sarah, once I've got my list of exactly where we're going and I've checked the weather a little bit nearer the time, I'll be sending them a full kit list. I'll be saying to them, this is what you're going to need for your hike. If you can't bring it, let me know, and I've normally got spares. But always let the people that you're walking with know what gear they need. So my final one is emergencies, and this is one people don't like to think about and they try and avoid, but actually it's vital that you consider everything that could possibly go wrong. What could go wrong during your hike, during your hour or even weekend? What if somebody twisted an ankle? What if visibility suddenly dropped? You lose your map that you're using. Have you got a second backup? What if the weather deteriorates so bad? How can you get safely off? Emergency planning isn't about making a day negative. It's about being controlled and well organised, because then if something does go wrong, you've already thought of options on how you can put that right. You already know what you're going to do, whether that's cutting the route short and getting off the side of the hill or the mountain as quickly as possible, or you already know how to call people like the mountain rescue team. You already know how to take a grid reference, you already know the numbers you need to call, and you can act quickly and decisively to stop a situation escalating from something fairly minor sometimes into something much bigger. Just ask yourself, what would I do if something went wrong at that location? And that's a really good way to start planning and start building that picture. So why do the 3 E's matter? Well, the first one was education, and education avoids avoidable mistakes. And it also can give the group you're with a better time if you can educate them and you can pass on information. The next one was equipment. That reduces exposure to risk. And again, if everyone's got the right kit and equipment, they can enjoy themselves more because they're warmer, they're drier, they're more comfortable. And then that third one was emergencies, because it reduces the need to panic, because in your mind you already know what you're going to do. Together they create margin, and margin is everything in the great outdoors. Most accidents don't happen because just people are reckless. They happen because of small little errors or small gaps. Maybe they're just a little bit underprepared. They've been a little bit rushed in their preparation. They're a little bit cold and they're running a little bit late. And then all those little bits just add into one big problem. And that's where things can go wrong. The 3 E's close those gaps. And those 5 W's give you a really big, nice picture. So by using the 5 W's and the 3 E's, can help you plan for a really fun and safe day out on the hills and the mountains. It creates a story of your day. What will be happening? Where will the good points be? Where can we stop for lunch? When are we going to end? It avoids things or limits things from going wrong. I'm just going to quickly show you that overview of how I've planned the OS map. And then afterwards, we're going to come on to what my next video is going to be about. Okay, so I've already decided that we're going to meet at a little village called Bellstone. And I've got that from the fact that we want parking and Bowstone's got parking, and we would like to maybe finish with a cafe or pub at the end, and Bowstone has that as well. So I'm just going to show you very quickly how I'm going to do this using the OS map app, and I will do another video on this in greater detail in the future, but I'm basically just going to quickly create a route, and I'm going to say that we're just starting at the car park just down here. And the advantage of doing this is it can be really, really quick, and I know that I'm after sort of a 4-ish hour, maybe 5-hour route. So that's going to work in quite nicely. And I know that we're going to go to Cosden Hill, which is just here at 550 meters. So it's one of the highest points in North Dartmoor. Not the highest, but it's one of. And it's also really good because it's surrounded by some Bronze Age settlements and some stone circles, which is what Sarah wants. So it kind of ticks 2 boxes, that one area in one go. So I'm just going to very, very quickly just create a route. And this doesn't need to be perfect. I'm not worrying about the ins and outs of everything at this stage. It's just to give me some timings and just give me a few ideas. So we can go up to this place called Irishman's Wall, which is really cool, and come down to Oak Tor, and then up to Steepleton. Again, I might change this bit a little bit. Again, we've got some settlements around there, which Sarah's going to really enjoy seeing, and we can pop up to Hound Tor. And then this is my main point that I was really looking at, because there's a nice big stone circle at that point there. And this is what I mean by actually going through and doing all your W's first before you start planning the route, because now we had an objective, which was some high points and some stone circles. We can now tick those off to say, brilliant, we've got that. So we've got that there. Then we're going to climb up to Cosden Hill, which ticks off the one that Jack wanted. This is also a really good route, and this comes down to local knowledge, because I know that there's normally ponies, and I can never promise, and I never do promise, but there's normally some Dartmoor ponies in that area. So bit of luck, we're doing quite well. Now I've just glanced over quickly, we're looking at 3 hours. So that's going quite well for my 4-hour odd sort of timing. We can then come back downhill, so it's done a little bit of a weird thing there. And I can then start picking up a little path back into the village and back to the car. So we wanted a 4-hour route, 4 to 5 hours. I've got it down to 3 hours, 53 minutes. So I think that's pretty close. Again, it's around the 15 kilometers, which is good. So by the time we allow for stops for photos, for lunch, for having a look, so it's not rushed, then that's going to take that 4-hour route easily up to 5 hours, which is absolutely perfect. And at this stage, that's all I need to do. I'm not worrying about all the little small bits. That's good enough for the first initial plan for today. Now, if you did just want to leave it as that, you could, and then you can download that onto your phone, you can print it, you can do various other things. But as I said earlier, I'll do another video on actually how to use this software better in the future. Hope that helps. Okay, so I hope that gave you a good overview of how I quickly use the OS software. I'll do another video on that in greater detail, but in my next video it's all going to be about route cards and actually really planning the ins and outs of that particular route. Now we've got the overview of what our day is going to look like, it will be the detail of the route. So subscribe along, and then you'll get notified when that one's up, which will be in a week or so from the date that this one was uploaded. So please subscribe, please like the videos. It's really, really important that you do. It's great getting feedback from you in comments as well, so please do that. If you want to do this with me in real life, in person on Dartmoor, then my website is down below. So click along to that and either pick a 1-day or a 2-day National Navigation and Award Scheme course. And I hope to see you on the moors so we can run through this in greater detail. Once again, I've been Rob from Discover Dartmoor. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you again soon. Cheers, bye.